everybody. It's MD Traditional, the New Age Lightworker. I am here to talk about a little bit on the subject of ghosts, spirits, angels, and even some demons. I know that's a tough word for some people to actually hear, but they are around, believe it or not. If this is your first time joining us, I thank you for being here. And if you wouldn't mind giving the subscribe button a click. And if you are a return viewer, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. And I encourage you to check out my Patreon's page. There's a lot of information there that isn't here on YouTube. And there's a lot of different PDF downloadable forms and worksheets and some really good spread out information. And I encourage you, go take a look. But I want to tap a little bit about the big spectrum of the unknown. I know it's a little bit unnerving for some people to talk about it, especially if you are raised in a very religious home. It is definitely in the Catholic religion, it is spoken about. Don't believe in ghosts. They're all demons. There's no such thing as ghosts or spirits. And, you know, that's unfortunately part of some cultural backgrounds is you can't speak about it or you're going to go to hell, or you can't talk about it. It's a hush-hush kind of taboo topic. So I grew up in a small town in California, and I had a lot of different experiences as a child. As I think the earliest that I can remember, I was probably, good grief, 5 or 6 years old. And I just remember so many different times, situations, during the day as well as night, where I would run into all of these energies. And I honestly would go up to my parents and I would let them know. And, you know, I was your typical child. I was a tomboy. I was rugged. I never liked to brush my hair. I loved to dress in sweatpants. I hated taking a bath and showers. And, you know, I was your typical little kid. And I was naughty at times, yes. And, you know, like any little child would, we would tell white lies. And a lot of the times, my mom, and I love her to death, would say, you know, it's your fault. You're a bad kid, and that's why you're going through all of these different scenarios, and all of this is happening to you. And this is just part of the culture that she was raised in. So I used to hold a lot of animosity towards her because of everything that was spoken to me as a child. But in all honesty now, I can see that it wasn't her fault. It was just the way that she was also brought up. And that's just part of a really big, long line of dominoes that have been set up since even before she was born. But that also ultimately helped me understand a little bit of what the other side was really about. And it opened up that door of curiosity for me to really dive in deep and get some different information and gain some knowledge about everything that was going on. And it's just really become a large staple in my life. And it's a big chunk of who I am now. And I don't want to say that these scenarios necessarily stopped as I got older. I just learned how to be able to acknowledge and control and put up that boundary of, you know, this isn't something that I really want to happen to me right now. So I'm asking you to leave or to go away. And it's just part of tools that I've learned to establish also throughout my lifetime. But my little familiar is trying to get out, and I'm trying to get him to sit on my lap because he has a little bark whistle, and it's really loud and it hurts the ears. Moby, come here. Come here. He keeps me company. Come on. Come on. Good boy. So, tapping into a little bit of, there's so many different categories out there, right? So many different cultures have different things. We have things from, like in coming from my background, being Mexican American, we have stories of like La Llorona, and that's a staple in the Hispanic culture. It's the tale of the wailing woman, and my father actually has a really good story that happened to him growing up in Mexico. And throughout the years of being such a small child, I've heard different stories from different areas and different family members that kind of coincide the same scenario. But there's the Fae, and in Irish cultures, there's the brownies, and the divas, and there's, in Hawaii you have the kahunas, and it's this very big elusive concept. And I don't know about you, but I just grow more and more and more curious as to, well, what is it? I want to learn more. It seems that you turn a page and you turn a page and you turn a page, and there's just more and more, and the curiosity just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And I have learned through my own experiences in my lifetime that there is a big difference between ghosts, spirit, angels, and demons. And I have been touched a little bit by all of them. And I have now finally understood the different types of vibrations that they bring, and the different type of energy that each one of them holds. So a ghost, I'm sure we've all heard different stories of like loved ones coming in and leaving messages, and a loved one's passing, and then all of a sudden you see them that night or the night before, standing at the foot of your bed saying goodbye. And the first ghost, or ghosts plural, that I had ever run into, I remember I was really small. My mom was a volunteer. She's always been volunteering in the church. It's just part of her human nature and who she is. She absolutely adores the Catholic Church. And when we were younger, I remember having to go with her to the priest's house, and she would clean up the kitchen and clean up around, and just do your normal dust and vacuum, throw away the trash, making sure that the priest's home was taken care of. And so many different times I would always go with her, and I was either by myself or my twin and I would go together and keep each other entertained. But sometimes we would end up being by ourselves because the other one would want to stay home. And so one of us always had to go with my parents or my mom. This one in particular time, I remember distinctly the priest having a box of all this miscellaneous type of toys. And one in particular that I was really attracted to was this little tiny wind-up duck. I think it was a duck, or an Easter duck or something like that. But I remember I was down at the base of stairs from this area of the church that was just, it was really closed off to everybody. And it was like stairs. And I remember being down at the base of the stairs, and I was by myself. There was nobody in church. It was a time where nobody is back and forth. It's just the priest, and then of course I believe it's the priest, and I know my mom was there, and I believe there was somebody else, but they were adults. I was the only child there. There was no catechism classes. There was no Sunday schools. There was no extra outside like choir practices or anything like that, because the day that she went to go clean, it was just her. And I remember winding up these little ducks, and I would put them down on the steps. And every time that it would hop, it was like, I know you guys probably had these little wind-up toys. And every time I would get to this edge of the step, it would topple over, and I would grab it, and I would just keep doing the same thing, the wind up, wind up. And I was so consumed that I didn't really stop to analyze what was going on in my background until it caught my attention. And I remember picking up my little wind up toy and just hearing, do it again. And I turned around, there's nothing there. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm just scaring myself because I was by myself. Wind up this little toy again, put it down on the steps, and it falls off the step, and I hear giggles. So I stop and I take a break and I look around. There was like a push door, I remember, at the bottom of the staircase, and I opened that door and I kind of peeked around, you know, making sure that nobody was on the other side. Nobody was there, so brushed it off, went about my business, did my little wind-up toy, put it on the step, it falls off the step again. Again, I hear these giggles. And there was more than one giggle. It sounded like it was maybe like one or two kids, and I feel like I was there maybe one or two more minutes before I felt my body just go completely cold and my hair stood on end. And I grabbed the box and I ran and I looked for my mom. And of course, my mom blew it off because she said, this is a holy place. There's no such thing. There's nothing here that can hurt you. And of course, I knew that there wasn't anything there that can hurt me. But at the same time, I also wanted her to understand what I just went through. But again, she brushed it off, blew me off. And needless to say, I never went back there by myself. But that was the first that I can remember interaction with a ghost. And I do feel that it was two children. And another time as an adult, so mind you, this was as a child, I didn't know what was going on. As an adult, my latest experience with a ghost was just a few years ago. And every now and then I catch a little glimpse of something here, but I don't interact with them unless I want to. But my husband and I were in Spain, and we were doing our vow renewals, and they took us into this part of the Gothic Square in Spain and in Barcelona. And it has a lot of history in there. There's a lot of bricks. There's a lot of walls that you can see went through some pretty violent activity with World War II. And there was this one particular area that it was an open space. It was like it was a schoolyard. And out there, the schools they're beautiful schools, tall brick walls. And this courtyard area had this huge tree, and I was just enamored by the size of it and the age of it. You could tell it was old, and you can tell that it was holding a lot of inner stories. And I like to feel the energy with my hands. That's just something that I've always done. And I walked up to this tree and I closed my eyes and I placed my hands on this trunk, and I just stood there and I just listened to it. And then I ran my fingers through all of these bullet holes and holes of bombs, and it was a pretty historic area, and it had a lot of history to it, and it's still a working school. So you can hear the kids on the back on the other side of this wall, and they're giggling and they're playing. And our guide was telling us that during recess, they actually open the doors, and that's the area that the kids used to play in. So we obviously had a great time. We packed up, came back home a few days later, and we came back first week of October, and everything was pretty normal. Everything was pretty quiet. It was very, back to your routines, getting the kids back to school, just really taking in and just kind of grounding all of your experiences, and you actually going to this different country. And I started to notice little by little different situations that were taking place when I was by myself while my children were at school, as well as at night. So the first time that I knew something was off, not just could I feel the presence of just foreign energies that aren't, my apologies, teenagers. Yeah, teenagers. That's all I have to say. So, the first time that I knew something was off, I just got to light a little bit of sage here. I got a bit flustered, which is completely normal. And that's what happens when you have a house full of kids and different people trying to tell a story. And sometimes they just don't care. But it is what it is. So, the first time I knew something was off, I was in my space here where I'm at, and the kids were all at school. Husband was at work. I was by myself. It was just myself and my one dog at the time. And he always sits next to me whenever, just wherever I go, he's always with me. And I was meditating, and it was really quiet, and all of a sudden my dog just gets my attention. He looks up towards the office doors, and he just starts growling. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, well, either he hears a car or somebody's about to knock at the door, because he picks up those senses, of course. All of you pet lovers, you know what I mean. So obviously nothing happened. I go back into meditation. Everything is fine. I come out of it. It's normal. And then I start noticing that he, throughout the day, looks down into our basement and just kind of tilts his head back and forth, almost like something is trying to catch his attention. And it doesn't happen often. It just happens every other day, but it piqued my interest. So I left it alone, didn't think anything of it. Then slowly my 8-year-old started waking up in the middle of the night and just really loudly voicing, there's a little boy in my bathroom. I don't want to sleep in my room. I can see him looking at me, and I don't like it. So me not wanting to be that domino of repeating what my mom would say, we would have him sleep with us, and the next day everything would be fine. And mind you, I'm pretty fluent at cleansing and clearing my home and spaces, and this is something that I obviously just did even now with my wonderful sage. So before I meditate, I always walk around the entire house, especially when the kids were at school, and I clear the space. So I never thought to think that anything was inside that didn't need to be there. But when I cleanse and clear my space, I always say anything that is outside of love and light needs to leave. I don't specifically specify if you are of love or of the light, you can stay. So that's how I feel it was kind of an okay invitation for them, or it, or he, to stay. Moving on. A few nights pass. We're all sleeping. My teenager sleeps in the basement. It was maybe 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and I wake up. I have mom ears. I know a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. I wake up. I'm a pretty soft sleeper, and I wake up because I think that my 8-year-old is running amok in the kitchen because I hear these little footsteps just running, and we have an open concept kitchen, so it sounds like he's literally running throughout the first floor of our home. So I sit up in bed and I nudge my husband and I tell him, "Do you hear that?" "Nothing." "Go back to bed." We lay back down, go back to bed. All of a sudden it sounds like somebody took the drying dishes, the rack of dishes, and you know when you just have everything piled up so balanced that it's like Tetris. If you pull the wrong one, the whole stuff is going to come crashing down. Well, it sounded like somebody did that, and all of these pot sounds and dishes and everything just kind of like came to a big crash. And I sat up in bed and I woke up the husband. I'm like, "Did you hear that?" And he says, "Go and check." And I'm like, "Me? Why should I?" "Because if it's a burglar, then, and if they take you down, I'm going to be the last resort." Okay, I totally got it. So I went down, put on my brave pants, pulled up my big girl chonas, and I'm trucking downstairs, and I'm just like, you know, cutting through the corners and kind of like jumping in and opening the door really fast. And I open the garage and I check the windows and I look through all the bathrooms, and there's nothing there. What makes it even odder is that the dishes are all in the same place. Nothing has moved. There's nothing on the floor. There's nothing broken. There's nothing crashed. And then my teenager comes up from downstairs and expresses, you know, "What's all that sound? Who's making all that racket?" And I couldn't give him an answer. So everything is okay. We double check the locks. We shut the doors. We make sure all of the other kids are okay. And we go back to sleep. A few days later, it's Thanksgiving, and by this time, I had a clear understanding of the presence of the little boy, because he was also coming up to, a lot of you moms and dads know what I'm talking about when you're sleeping and you can feel your child just staring down at you, trying to get your attention to wake up, but they don't want to wake you up. That's what this little boy was doing to me. And I would wake up and I would look and I would sense that he was there, and then nothing. So this would happen different nights at a time. Sometimes he would kind of like shake my feet and I would wake up and he would be gone. So finally I had a little conversation with him and I told him, "Look, I understand that you're here. I'm not sure what you want from me. I understand that maybe you are looking for your parents or you enjoy having different kids to play with, but this is not your home." And then it was silent for a couple of nights until Thanksgiving. And that's when I got confirmation and validation from my twin sister. And she comes up to me and she says, "You know, I just looked over to your couch and I could have sworn I saw a little boy with," and I said, "Stop right there. Does he have classic khaki pants, a little bit longer past his knees?" And she was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah. He followed us from Spain." So quietly cheering because I got the validation from somebody else, because my husband is a non-believer and that's okay. That's his choice and I respect that. But it made me feel good that I was validated as well. So I took the time, I did a meditation, I called out to him, and it turns out this little boy's name is really cute. Sandy blonde hair, khaki chap shorts with these old worn brown shoes. And it turns out his story was really sad. He was a victim of one of the bombings that took place in that school. And he was taken really quickly from his parents. And his name was Daniel. And I remember just crying after he introduced himself to me. And I was heartbroken because at the same time, I'm a mom and I know that he wanted that connection to a mother again, a mother figure. And that's initially what attracted him to me. And he attached. And that was my fault because I had let my boundaries down when I was placing my hands on the tree and on the walls. And I was picking up on all the chaos and the violence and the drama. And he saw that light and he attached. But it also makes me feel good because he chose somebody that could help him cross to the other side. So thankfully, I was a part of a Reiki circle. I haven't due to COVID and everything that's going on, but we opened that light, we opened that door for him, and he went and he left in peace, and everything was fine after that. But that's when I started getting a really close connection with ghosts and spirits and understanding that, okay, my job is a little bit bigger than this. And that really touched my heart because he knew that I wasn't going to hurt him, and he knew that I was somebody that was a mom, and I love my kids and I will do anything for them. And I think he saw that light and he just wanted to go home. So it's a really sad story, but ultimately with a very happy ending because we did send him to the light. And I'm pretty sure he's out there having a great time with his other brothers and sister and his mom and his dad. But now, angels. And an angel is essentially just the name that we have given them, but they are celestial beings. They are created from holy fire in itself. They are a creation of God, but they are not made from earth like we are. They are essentially a part of his energy and who he is. So to think that an angel has a body or used to live, there are only two that have done so, and they were Enoch the prophet and Elias the prophet. And these two are essentially Metatron and Sandalphon, and they were ascended up into heaven just like Mother Mary. And Metatron went through some crazy stuff to get to the position that he is at. And there's a lot of different information regarding him, different lores and different stories. Different cultures have different stories, of course, but it's quite interesting because a few different stories are said to say that a few of the higher hierarchies of angels, thrones, cherubim, they were pretty jealous of the fact that a man was essentially raised through all of these different levels of all of the heavens, and they were getting a bit upset, and that's essentially what made Enoch or Metatron into the earth angel that he is now. But that's a whole different video, and I'll do a video on Metatron separately. But angels, again, that's just a title. They're celestials. They're beings of God in itself and his energy. They are, if you quote unquote think about it, a supervising force because they're watchers. They watch over us. They protect us. They interfere when there's something that needs to be either blocked from happening, or if you would invoke them on a daily basis like I do, it would be something that would be for a protective reason, maybe taking you from one situation or Like if you have a lunch date with so-and-so at 6 o'clock and something just happens and it seems like everything is just blocking you from getting there on time. And then you find out that there was a really bad car accident, or that restaurant had like a break-in or something like that. You know, those are your angels interfering with your life course to try to get you away from a situation that could be devastating to you and your family and your well-being. But essentially, their energy it's always present. It's always around us. It has been since even before we came into this existence and this body. They are our protectors, our supervisors, our watchers, our teachers. They are our guides. But each angel holds a different vibration. Each one has a specific assignment. And one thing about angels is that they are not able to learn different techniques. They are created for one purpose and that one purpose only. And that's why there's so many different angels, because each one holds a different vibration and purpose. For example, Archangel Michael, he's our protector. He's also justice. He is the scales of right from wrong. And then we have Archangel Raphael, who is our healer. He just heals mind, body, and soul. And then we have Archangel Gabriel. Archangel Gabriel is the messenger. He brings forth the messages that need to be bridged together. And that's from the heavens down to our energy level. Because believe it or not, they are at wavelengths that we can't even perceive. We can't even comprehend the level of consciousness that they are at. And to get there is completely, it's never happened. As far as I have heard and read and looked for, it's never happened besides Metatron or Enoch the prophet. But they are essentially each one titled for different purpose, different reasons of beings, and therefore that's why you would call specifically on just one, because maybe there's like a situation, a court case that's coming up, and you really just kind of want to have that that security, calling in your protector or somebody that can help make sure that it favors ultimately for you. And that would be Archangel Michael, because he is the archangel of justice, of scales, of right from wrong. He is your warrior. He is, you know, the defeater of Satan himself. Which takes me down now to the demonic energies and those who seemingly are very dark. And these are also, they were once angels. They were once celestial beings. They were once in those high heavens and rode alongside Metatron. Well, not specifically Metatron, because he came at a different time, but it would be Michael, it would be Archangel Ariel, it would be Archangel Hanael. All of these angels, including the fallen, were once in the same realm. There was no such thing back when all of this began as demons right off the bat. These are the rebellious. These are the ones who chose to say, I want this for myself. And a lot of them initially have some really devastating stories. But that doesn't mean that you should feel sorrow for them, because you shouldn't feel sorrow for them, even though some of the initial stories are pretty sad. It's more of like falling in love with the mortal women. It's them wanting to show us things that at one point were closed off to the humans. So, for example, herbalism was secretive, and only the angels were able to have this type of gift. And that's where Archangel Raphael would come down and choose one person or persons to gift little pieces of knowledge of this herbalism, plant-based medicine. And this goes back to Tobit in that chapter of taking the whale and consuming, or not the whale, but the fish, and taking the bile and the eyes and creating the ointment for the uncle to heal from the blind, and to actually use also as incense to weaken the demon that I believe it was Tobiah had initially needed to be able to defeat the demon and take his fiance or whatnot. If you haven't read that story, it's in the Bible. It's the book of Tobit, but that's the first initial interaction between Archangel Raphael and humans, mortals. But the fallen angels, some of the different angels, the reason that they even became fallen in the first place was because they chose to ignore God's command and take all of these secrets down into the man and into the human aspect of things, our platform, and give us this knowledge of plant and how to work with metals and how to create knives and how to create shields and all of these, even math, even magic, all of that, geometry, astronomy, mapping, all of it was supposed to be a really big secret that only the angels were able to gift down to us little by little. But a selective choir of angels chose to rebel and ignore the commands of God and take them down and bring that knowledge to us. And some of them were therefore sent to the abyss because of that. Nonetheless, they are still very aggressive energies, and even with this, I did have I did have interaction with one, and it was not the very best time of my life. It was one of the scariest things that have ever happened to me, and I was pretty young, also living in the house in California, and the image of it has never ever left my sight, my inner sight. It's embedded in my memory, and I still remember the distinct hiss and sound. And a lot of people that think about demons or demonic energies think of these big creatures, right? Like monsters, 8 feet tall, black and skeletonish and whatnot. And this was about 2 to 3 feet tall. It looked almost the size of what you would consider, what are those called? The gnomes out in the garden, which is one of the reasons that I don't like gnomes, is because I am petrified of that size of object. And all of those garden gnomes are about 2-3 feet tall, and that's exactly what this thing was. And it had this type of skin that was like gray and white and dull and scaly, and it just had this smirk on its face that looked like it was half smiling, almost like if it was just, it knew what it was doing to me, and it enjoyed the fact that I was terrified. And the more that I was terrified, the bigger the grin would get. And it was almost like in a cat's prone position where it was just on, it was on 4, and it was sitting on this old record player that my parents used to have. It was a huge old record player, and it was placed and shut against our bay window. And it was just sitting on top of it, looking at me, and it had pointy cat-looking ears, but they were bigger than that. And it looked something between a cross of a resurrected carcass that was the size and look of like a church gargoyle, is the only way that I can explain it, with nasty claws. And it was the scariest time of my life. And I remember I was a prisoner in my bathroom for what seemed like an eternity, and it was probably more like 45 minutes, but it took everything that I had to run from that bathroom and into our bedroom, and whatever it was followed me until I got to our bedroom, and I don't remember ever sleeping for the rest of the night, but I knew what it was, and I never, ever, ever want to have that experience again. But that doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen again. And the next time that I ran into a demonic type of energy was in my adulthood. And this one, I feel it was not a very good time in our life. I was mother of 3, but everything felt like it was just coming at me. And I was making some really terrible choices in life. And I was always fighting, always arguing with everybody. And I remember one particular night, my oldest was about 4 years old. Our third son was probably maybe about 9 months old, somewhere around there. My second child was probably 2, so that seems about right. And I had just gotten into a really big fight with the husband. He came home late. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And I remember I was trying to cool down by watching TV and trying to forget about everything that had just happened. And we had hardwood floors at this house, and I heard creaking, creak, creak, creak. And I stopped, thinking that it was my 4-year-old. And so I called out his name. Are you there? Are you there? Nothing. Didn't think anything of it. Continued watching TV. And I heard the creaking again. Creak, creak. And there were solid footsteps on hardwood floor. Now, the bedrooms at the time weren't far from each other. It was literally bedroom, bedroom, bedroom. Tiny little hallway, and then a bathroom at the end of that. The hallway was probably maybe about 2 feet long. It was not a very big hallway. And probably about the 3rd or 4th time that I heard those footsteps, I started getting very annoyed, because the 9-year-old baby or the 9-month-old baby in the crib was starting to toss, and I had just put him to sleep. So finally I called out to my son, and I said his name in a very aggressive way, and I was just like, "What are you doing?" And repetitive, so my son's name, I just, "JP, what are you doing?" And all of a sudden, right at the door, right at the threshold of my bedroom door, I heard the most guttural voice I had ever heard, and it sounded like it was snarling and it was growling at the same time. And in my mind's eye, I can picture this thing just drooling. I can picture just whatever it was falling off of its mouth with these ugly looking teeth. And this one was essentially big, and from what it looked like in my mind's eye, it was this hairy black thing, and it just repeated his name, JP. And I almost shit my pants, turned on my lights, ran into my 4-year-old's bedroom, turned on the lights, checked on him, ran and grabbed my baby, checked on the 2-year-old. And then I'm trying to wake up the husband, who at the time was just comatose. And I could not get him to wake up for the life of me. And he was clear far down in the living room. He wasn't even in the bedroom or around that hallway. Ran down to the basement, because my brother was also living with us at the time. Asked him, "Were you upstairs? Did you call his name?" No, you just woke me up." And needless to say, I slept with all the lights on. I made sure that all of the kids were as close as can be to me, and didn't repeat this to anybody at all. And looking back at a lot of my photos, from when I was pregnant and living in that house even before the child was born. We lived there maybe about 1 or 2 years. There was orbs all over me all the time. And that place just did not feel good at all. And I wasn't aware of what I can attune to at the time. I just thought it was what it was, and I was just being a very bad person because that's what was embedded in me as a small child. And learned lessons that I needed to learn, and I developed my spiritual wellness and ritual work and boundaries, and now I'm here bringing it to you guys. But there has been so many different scenarios and situations that have taken place in my life to have me understand the different levels of things that are outside of our spectral vision. And ghosts usually are here to bring us a message, or maybe they just need some help. Maybe they're lost. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they just don't want to go to the other side. But ghosts were once a living person or thing. And that's how you can tell the difference. And spirit is the energy that is held around us. The ascended masters, like what you would consider Buddha, or Gandhi, that's spirit energy. Those are part of our ascended masters. And then you have the angels who influence us and are kind of like that quiet voice that sits on our shoulder and says, hey, there's a yellow light coming up, slow down. And we initially listen to that as our intuition. These are our angels. They're our guides. They're our guardian angels. Never living. They were created from holy fire. They are a piece of God themselves. And then we have the fallen angels, who are here to just scare the living life out of us, and they do a very good job. But most of the time, the reason that they are even present in the house is either one, somebody has specifically called them in, because they don't just appear and show up. That's one thing about demons. You have to invoke them in order for them to make their presence show, or to make their presence known. And that's why I tell people, if you're not prepared to do the work, and if you're just dabbling in these books and in these things, and if you don't have some sort of a structured boundary, you are opening the door to things that you may not want to walk through that threshold. And if you open that door, 50% of the time, one, you can't shut it again, or two, it will then attract to you and bind to you and will follow you everywhere you go. Now, sometimes if you move into a place, or if you walk into a place where you feel like demons are there, or negative energy, those lower vibrations, you need to distinguish them between being either a really angry ghost or something that's even lower, which would be that demonic type of energy. And if that's the case, if you live in a place where you feel like that's what's going on, it may not have been you that initiated that, but it could have already been there. But let me tell you this, if you are in a place, a home, or any type of property that you feel this, the more that you fight and the more that you argue, the more that you feed it lower vibrations, the more that you're giving it power, the bigger and stronger it's getting. So if you live in a home that you feel has some sort of negative energy or vibration, then you need to work on those inner relationships and feed it with love instead of anger. Because love is what's going to dissipate and weaken that unity and faith. If you're feeding it continuous battles of anger, fights, destruction, chaos, you're just giving it fuel. You're fueling it, and it's loving it. And it will then become attached to you and continue to push you to create more chaotic relationships and to cause more of a destruction, not just to your inner home and inner relationships and people who live with you or are close to you, but also within yourself. You'll pick up habits, bad habits that are influencing your body and will cause you to get sick. So take a look at what's around you if you feel like you're being either attacked or if there's something negative within your home. Distinguish that. Is it something that just comes and goes, or is it something that I feel is just negative, dark, vicious? You can feel the difference. Now, a big thing that I have noticed is that ghosts usually come with the type of vibration that not just will make your hair stand on ends, but when I was a little girl, and even to this day, this is how I know that they're around, or something or someone is coming in. And a lot of you 80s kids know what I'm talking about, because it sounds, you remember the channels, the TVs that you had to just like change it with the little knob. So their energy is like if it was on a non-existent channel where it sounds like white light and you can just hear the, that's what their energy feels like. And I know it's really hard to try to grasp what I'm trying to talk about or to understand that feeling, but you can hear it. That's what it sounds like. That's what their energy sounds like when they're around you. It sounds like a quiet white light. And then you can start feeling that static energy. And then your hair will start standing on end. And then, more times than not, you'll either get something that is maybe falling off the wall, or I used to get shoved a lot as a kid, especially in the mornings. It was just something that ghosts love to do. And I remember waking up in the morning and literally being pushed and me toppling over. One time I was so scared I thought I was going to get my finger chopped off, because whatever it is that pushed me into our tall standing fan, and I remember sticking my fingers in it to try to catch my balance, and I just ended up face first on the floor. But listen to that difference. That's how you can tell that energy is around you. Spirit is more of an inner voice. Spirit is more of like let's say that you have a passenger in your car and you just, for some reason, you want to stick your arm out to stop them, and then you hit the red light because the car ran. That's spirit trying to guide you and, say, do this. It influences you. And then you have your angels, who are just that inner intuitiveness that says it's a knowing. You just know. No questions asked. You just know. And then, of course, the more negative energy, the one that's telling you to do all the negative things, the one that's telling you, go pop their tires, or go and steal that, or nobody knows, go grab that money that's left as a tip for that waitress. Nobody's going to know. Just walk by and grab it. Those are all lower vibrations that are taking place. And if they're already telling you that, then chances are they're somewhere residing in a residence of yours, or wherever it is that you're either working in or living in. So it's time to take a look at your surroundings. But these are all different little stories of mine, different scenarios and situations, and they've been scary and they have been beautiful. So I don't want you to be scared of anything that you can't see with your own two eyes, because our senses start with our feelings first. Our eyes are like the last things that we should use to feel or to see. The initial one is the vibration. It's just like when somebody comes up behind you, you feel it, you know it's there. That's the first introduction. So if this is something that you want to dabble in, I encourage you first to build a really strong boundary, because if you don't, you're going to be opening doors that you shouldn't be opening. And it's going to be really hard to close those doors again. So make sure you're also coming from a place of goodness and unconditional love and faith, unwavering faith, because God needs to be on your side. if you're going to be dabbling into all of these. And if you think that he doesn't exist, he's not just the name. God is a representation of the energy that's around us, the universe, creation, the trees, the birds, the air we breathe, the perfectness between the balance of earth to the sun and how we don't burn up. It's all of that. So it's not, try your best to remove yourself from the religious context of it and see it more as a wholeness, because that's essentially what he is. But you need to have some sort of faith, unwavering faith, if you're going to do anything that has to do with introducing yourself to these different energies, because they can either do good or they can either do bad. But it's a whirlwind of an experience, I'll tell you that. And it can either be really scary or really beautiful. And if this is a natural gift that you were born with, if you don't want it, you can choose to block it out. But if you do want it, you have to do some work. And it starts with you. And I will keep repeating that. It starts with you. And faith, foundation, and boundaries. That's where it's all initiating from. That needs to be that first little seed that you plant. But I have so many more different stories that I can tell. If you guys are interested in hearing them, let me know, comment below. But there's so many different elements. It's amazing. But if you guys have some crazy stories, I want to hear them, because I absolutely love listening to so many different people's events and occurrences. And, you know, I'm just like that. I'm just the curious George. I just want to hear more and more and more and more and more and more and more. So leave me a comment. And if you guys do want to hear some more stories, let me know too. Comment below. But I hope you enjoyed my little Sunday stories. And like I said, check out my Patreon. All of the links are down below. And if you liked this video and my stories, then please subscribe. Until then, happy Sunday, everybody. I wish you the best week ever. For you folks who are on my Patreon and are subscribed to the 3-card reading, it is up and ready to go for you guys. And also, I will have the Herb of the Week and the Stone of the Week going up later on tonight. So if you're curious as to what that is, check out the Patreon page. Until then, I love you lots.